I grew up as a tomboy and I found that I always played with the boys. I had similar interests. I was rough and tumble out in the dirt.
Growing up, I feel like I was always super confident. I was definitely taught by my parents that I could do anything that I wanted to. One year I was doing cheerleading and on the sidelines of the football field, and I was like, well, that looks fun to play. And the next year, my best friend and I played tackle football in our town.
And it wasn't really until I started growing breasts that I went through puberty and I realized, oh, I'm a little bit different. I felt embarrassed, which I don't think is uncommon, but it's kind of sad because there's nothing embarrassing about going through puberty, becoming a woman.
I used to wear really long shorts. We used to be a really big fan of in the lacrosse world. Like actually Northwestern's team, when I was an undergrad, like made it fashionable to wear like long shorts and kind of have this swagger. A lot of people called me out for it because they were like, you are a girl, you shouldn't be wearing those.
I ended up choosing finance as a major. I would say to myself and to others like, oh, I'm a finance major, but I'm not a finance person. I realize now in hindsight, like how damaging that mindset was. On the first day of class, the professor said, wow, we've never had so much estrogen in the room. In the moment, I was just so intensely aware of me being a woman and like starting to kind of question my place in that class, whether I belonged there. Now in hindsight, it's like, well, yeah, clearly you've never had that many women in the room if you're saying a comment like that.
Well, I worked in a predominantly white male industry. I oftentimes would be the only woman in the room.
I went from investment banking and then into private equity, which is even less women. I actually was the only female in every office I ever worked in.
I would notice when talking to partners with male counterparts with me that there was kind of this tacit exclusion of me in certain conversations. Those partners would hold eye contact with my male counterparts a little bit longer or more directly, which just made me feel a little bit excluded.
The more senior person in her classroom kept referring to the managers or partners as he. In one instance, she said, or she, out loud, and this guy just kind of shot her a look like she was out of place for saying that. It was like a worthwhile emphasis, and I think it's something we can all work on.
And it was the first time that I realized that I wasn't just a person moving through the professional world. I was part of a larger group, and that maybe that meant there'd be additional challenges or barriers as I wanted to step into leadership roles.
The more experience that I had at the company and the more time I spent, the fewer women there were in the sort of top spaces.
It kind of shaped this whole idea of like, I don't know if this is for me forever.
It kind of lit a fire under my butt to go out and seek other women in the industry. They weren't really handed to me. Mentorship wasn't something that was kind of like just available to me.
Your gender and kind of your identity can be something that you lean into as much as you want, and it doesn't have to be a barrier, but in the same way, sometimes it makes you have to make decisions that others don't. I don't think I really believed that there was such a gender disparity in business school until I got here.
I feel like the hindrances are more subtle.
Being in breakout rooms, set at random, I oftentimes was the only woman.
When I can count on like less than one hand how many female professors I've had.
I'm always waiting, will someone else come in late? Is it really just me? And then I kind of hesitate and I think, am I going to be the first one to speak? If I'm the first one to speak, what does that say about me? Are they going to assume that I'm going to take notes and I'm going to volunteer if the professor calls on our group?
A friend shared a story of being in a class where the protagonist was a female. So the professor had incorporated a woman's perspective, but then students were default misgendering the protagonist when discussing it in class.
And I think that's also why I decided to lean into the WBA. I knew that there was this gender split in business school. I knew that I wanted to identify with more women. I knew I wanted to express that part of my identity.
Every single woman who is admitted to Kellogg has an unbelievable background. Like everyone's so different, everyone's so intelligent, and everyone's background is amazing.
So much to learn from them. So strong, so creative, powerful.
My Women's Business Association family has literally just one of my families, my support systems, and they have been my champions and supporters from day one, and we all come from very different backgrounds.
I'm excited for having those friendships for life.
Our two co-presidents of the Entrepreneurship and Venture Capital Club this year are women. I'm one of the co-presidents of the Private Equity Club, which has historically never had women in it, especially with Dean Corneli at the helm of all of it. It gives me a lot of sense of pride, but it also makes me feel so reassured that I made the right choice in coming to Kellogg.
I really appreciate with allyship this analogy of it being building a muscle and something that you work at over time.
I think the small things of, walking a female friend home or making sure at a party that, there isn't someone who's exhibiting predatory behavior. I had someone in a marketing class who pointed out to me that the professor had been talking over me, and it could have been Zoom and it could have been him. And who knows, he felt the need next time to echo my point to make sure that it got across, which I found as a great kind of moment of allyship there, and making sure that my voice was heard and I wasn't talked over.
The Ambassador Challenge is one of my favorite experiences that we've had at Kellogg. We gave daily challenges that were meant to build empathy, to better understand women's experiences. Challenges ranged from taking a Tic Tac or a piece of candy to simulate taking birth control, and that you had to take that at the same time every day. Not walking home alone at night, carrying a tampon with you all weekend, taking on some of the administrative burdens. So setting up any Slack channels for your groups or sending out every meeting invite, offering to take notes in meetings. And I think some of my favorite reflections were people acknowledging that every time I got another challenge, I was a little bit frustrated or irritated that there was one more thing to do. And then I would stop and think oh, this is what it's like for women.
We can never truly understand someone else's lived experience, but we can do our best to empathize and to make sure that we give them a platform to be the best version of themselves. I think the first thing is you will meet the most interesting, ambitious, and diverse group of people probably that you've ever met.
Take advantage of meeting as many of these women as you possibly can.
You'll be surrounded by such a powerful group of women to learn from.
This is a really unique time in your career progression where you'll be able to do that and build this foundation of a really strong female network. Women can really be useful to you and teammates to you in ways that I don't think you'd be able to see right now, but you could in the future.
On the whole, the Kellogg community is very supportive.
But that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy.
If you take it upon yourself to share how you've been made to feel by a comment or an experience, people are receptive to that feedback, and that by and large, I think the whole community is hoping to learn and grow in their time at Kellogg.
Understand that there will still be difference, and that's okay. That's what makes Kellogg such a vibrant community.
I hope that you are incredibly proud of all of your accomplishments to date. Remember that you belong here. You're here for a reason too, and that you'll do great things as long as you lean into that.